So we are here in Nevada with Ann Blake-Tracy. She's the Executive Director of the International Coalition for Drug Awareness. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And so you have been testifying in cases as an expert witness for a long time on the effect of some of these psychotropic drugs on the mind and how people seem to kind of lose it. Would you give us total novices out there who don't know anything about this, give us a little bit of an introduction, some of the dangers of these drugs, like maybe Prozac and things like that?
Yeah, there's a whole group of serotonergic antidepressants, and those are the ones that we're seeing the most problem with. But there are other medications as well, like gabapentin, Lyrica, those kinds of drugs, even Fen-Phen and Redoxil diet pills were all serotonergic drugs. And it was the elevated serotonin that caused the problems with them to have them pulled from the market. But what these drugs are doing that I think is the most dangerous is they're causing the REM sleep behavior disorder. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's where the brain stem becomes overstimulated by the high serotonin levels, and they do not have paralysis, muscle paralysis during sleep, so they can get up and act out whatever they're dreaming.
Wow.
Sadly, with these drugs, that is generally a nightmare. So people don't understand that what you're doing actually is producing a sleep disorder that can make you go into a total psychotic break due to the sleep problems with it. REM sleep being repressed was the first thing they saw with these drugs.
And so one of the areas that I know you focused on is how some of the people who've gone out and like shot up a school or done a mass shooting have been on these psychotropic drugs. What's the relationship? I know you talked a little bit about how so many of these, maybe almost all of them, have been on these kind of drugs. Tell us a little bit about the relationship and how common that is and what the dangers are.
It's extremely common, and that's why I started researching all of these cases. And we've got a website at ssristories.net with almost 5,000 cases like this, which includes almost every school shooter, and I can't think of a mass shooter that they weren't on one of these drugs.
Wow. And so, somebody might hear that and be like, well, maybe they were just crazy to begin with, and that's why we put them on the drugs. How would you respond to that?
Well, some of them just took the drug for stomach problems, gallbladder issues. I mean, one little girl took it for warts and committed suicide. Drug company tried to blame it on the warts instead of their drug, of course, but it didn't work.
So what do you recommend? I mean, you've been looking at this issue for a long time. Suppose some parents take their kids to go be diagnosed and the doctor says, hey, you have, whatever, depression, have some Prozac. Would you say, take that, don't take that? Would you have any thoughts?
Definitely do not take it. The FDA finally in 2004 warned that you've got double the chance of suicide if you're under 25 and you take one of these drugs. And yet they continue to prescribe them to that age group, and we've seen suicide skyrocket. I'm going, hello? Can anybody do math?
So why is this happening? How are the pharmaceutical companies getting away with this?
They have a lot of money.
Yeah. So lobbying and stuffing and political campaigns.
And yeah, they can do a lot with their advertising money.
And what about the doctors? I mean, why don't psychiatrists speak out about this? Why do they keep prescribing this stuff?
Well, what else are they going to do to stay in business? One of the biggest problems is we've got so many doctors on the drugs, doctors and nurses. They're estimating about 75% of them now take these drugs.
Wow.
And that's scary because some of the early studies told us that these drugs will take brain cells and turn them into corkscrew shapes. Is that a nice technical medical way of telling you you're screwing up your brain?
No kidding. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So where do people find out more about your research, your findings? How do people get in touch with you? What's the best website?
We are at drugawareness.org, and there's tons of information there. Dr. Candace Pert, whose work was used to develop these drugs, and then she came out against them, joined us and worked with us for a long time. She was very much, she called the drugs monsters, that she was alarmed her research had anything to do with their development. So we've got all kinds of information. She even headed the brain chemistry department at NIH for years. She was there for 13 years just before she joined us. So sadly, she passed away about 5 years ago. So.
Well, thank you so much for speaking out. Thank you for everything you're doing. And folks, check out that website. And again, we are with Blake-Tracy. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.